on Israel. The member for Fadden.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I move the motion relating to Israel in the terms in which it appears in the notice paper.
The member for Fadden.
Mr Deputy Speaker, this year celebrates a number of historic milestones for the great state of Israel. 14th of May is the 70th anniversary of the creation of the modern state of Israel, a seminal event that created the only free democracy in the Middle East. This parliament warmly congratulates our sister in democracy, the Israeli Knesset, and the people of Israel for what they have achieved. An amazing 70 years of democracy, growth and prosperity. Israel remains the light, a beacon of hope for the Middle East, and we are so proud to stand with her. But amidst the 70th anniversary of joy, the 15th of July this year unfortunately marks the 80th anniversary of sorrow, for it's the anniversary of the end of the fateful Evian Conference convened by President Roosevelt in 1938 in Evian France, with 31 countries, to discuss the issue of the plight of Jewish refugees fleeing the horror of Nazi persecution. It's an anniversary of the world turning its back on God's holy chosen Jewish people. It's an anniversary that this parliament will seek to atone for today. As we do so, I acknowledge that this issue was raised a decade ago in this place by the member for Isaacs. His reasons were genuine, and it's doubtful whether we would have reached today without his sincere, heartfelt intervention a decade ago. I therefore offer a thank you to the member for Isaacs and all those who spoke with him for their humanity and their quest to make things right 10 years past. It's a pleasure to stand in the House of Representatives with him and my other good colleagues today, representing both major political parties, and I acknowledge the member for Eden Monero at the desk. Today, this parliament, as representative of all political parties and the people of Australia, issues a profound apology and says sorry to the Jewish people for the indifference shown by the parliament in 1938 that worsened the impact of the Holocaust. We do this because at Evian, the Australian government sent the Australian Minister for Trade and Customs, Lieutenant Colonel T.W. with a message of indifference. Doubtless he did not go and speak on his own authority, but on that of the executive government of the day, but his words were not challenged by this parliament. At Evian, the Australian Minister for Trade and Customs declined to further assist the Jewish people in their hour of need, stating, "Australia has her own particular difficulties. Migration has naturally been predominantly British, and it is not desired that this be largely departed from while British settlers are forthcoming. Under the circumstances, Australia cannot do more, for it will be appreciated that in a young country, manpower from the source from which most of its citizens have sprung is preferred, while undue privileges cannot be given to one particular class of non-British subjects without injustices to others. It will no doubt be appreciated also that as we have no real racial problem, we are not desirous of importing one by encouraging any schemes of large-scale foreign migration. I hope that the conference will find a solution of this tragic world problem." Those words spoken by the Minister in 1938, "As we have no real racial problem, we are not desirous of importing one by encouraging any scheme of large-scale foreign migration, and I hope that the conference will find a solution for this tragic world problem," have haunted our nation. Our nation's government turned its back on our Jewish friends at the exact time they needed us. Our parliament said nothing. Understandably, Lieutenant Colonel White's statement on behalf of the Government of Australia is still visible at Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem, as representative of all other nations' responses of indifference at the Evian Conference. Australia was not alone. The world turned its back. But for Australia's indifference, this parliament says sorry. 5 months later, post-Kristallnacht, when the Nazis burnt Jewish synagogues, businesses and books and hauled Jews to concentration camps, thankfully Australia did reassess its policy of only taking 1,800 refugees per year. News of the Nazis' dreadful pogrom strengthened the position of many organisations arguing for a liberalisation of the country's immigration policy. Support for the admission of Jewish refugees now came from unexpected quarters. On the 18th of November 1938, the New South Wales Trades and Labour Council, which had traditionally been opposed to immigration, passed a resolution asking the government to accept Jewish refugees and, if necessary, to support them financially. At the same time, from London, Australia's High Commissioner, former Prime Minister Stanley Bruce, told the government on the 21st of November that strong feeling is rapidly developing that an unprecedented international effort was required to deal with Jewish refugees from Germany, and that Australia might find itself in an embarrassing situation if it did not make a statement regarding its approach. He suggested a quota of 30,000 refugees over 3 years. Cabinet agreed to Bruce's proposal in principle but halved the figure. On the 1st of December, Interior Minister John McEwen announced the new policy that had been approved by Cabinet the night before. He announced in Parliament. He said Australia would admit up to 15,000 refugees from Europe over 3 years. Hansard from 1 December 38 records McEwen's speech. The government feels that if a solution of this problem is to be found, countries must be prepared to receive a proportion of those to be expectorated in relation to the capacity of the countries to assimilate them. By the outbreak of World War II in September 1939, more than 7,000 Jewish refugees had arrived in Australia. Our country's indifference had started to change. As the horrors of the Second World War unfolded, the tragedy of Hitler's venom against God's holy people, the Jews, was becoming known. In December 1942, the Allies, including Australia, issued a joint announcement about their recognition of the massacre of Jews in Poland. Soon the United Jewish Emergency Committee was instituted in Sydney, while the United Jewish Overseas Relief Fund was founded in Melbourne. In 1943, all Jewish communities in Australia presented a joint resolution to Prime Minister Curtin asking him to support Jewish immigration to Australia and soon to be Israel, and to take part in any international relief effort for the survivors of the Nazi horrors. However, the government responded negatively to these requests. Unfortunately, people were just not aware of the true extent of Nazi horror and thus were not empathetic to the cause. The lack of understanding in Australia is reflected to the label given to Jewish refugees from Europe. They were called enemy aliens. So on this 80th anniversary of sorrow, I have sought guidance on atonement for wrong from the Jewish law, the Torah, represented of course in my Bible in the Old Testament in Leviticus 5:14-19. It says the following: The Lord said to Moses, when anyone is unfaithful to the Lord by sinning unintentionally in regard to any of the Lord's holy things, they are to bring to the Lord as a penalty a ram from the flock, one without defect, and of the proper value in silver according to the sanctuary shekel. It's a guilt offering. They must make restitution for what they've failed to do in regard to the holy things, and they must pay an additional penalty of a fifth of its value and give it to the priest. The priest will make atonement for them with the ram as a guilt offering, and they'll be forgiven. If anyone sins and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands, even though they do not know it, they are guilty and will be held responsible. They're to bring to the priest as a guilt offering a ram from the flock, one without defect and of the proper value. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them for the wrong they've committed unintentionally, and they'll be forgiven. It's a guilt offering. They've been guilty of wrongdoing against the Lord. Today, this Parliament recognises that we have been guilty of failing to do something in regard to the holy things. We failed to protect more of God's holy people, the Jews. Our ram and the additional one-fifth value we present today, our guilt offering, is our words of atonement, our apology, our profound sense of sorry. And we do this from both sides of the aisle. Both the Labor and the Liberal parties argued for the expanded refugee intake in 1938 to save Jewish lives 80 years ago. So today, both parties stand together to say sorry for the indifference at Evian. Both Labor and Liberal MPs did not do enough in 1943 to support the Jewish community's joint resolution to more fully embrace Jewish refugee migration. And again, we say sorry. An estimated 6 million Jews and millions of others died during the Holocaust, exasperated by the failure of Australia and every other nation of the world to more fully protect the Jewish people. Thus today we seek to honour the memory of all those who lost their lives in the Holocaust and make right a great wrong perpetuated by Australia and the rest of the world on the Jewish people, that of indifference. Today we present our Parliament's guilt offering through our words and draw a line under this Evian Conference of Sorrow. Today we vow never again to turn our back on Israel or our Jewish brothers and sisters, wherever they are in the world. Today we reaffirm our love and commitment to Israel. As we do this, I request that this motion be presented to Yad Vashem in this 70th year, asking that the parliamentary apology be displayed beside Lieutenant Colonel White's statement of 1938 that he issued on behalf of the Government of Australia. I formally pass this request along to the Secretary of Israel's Foreign Ministry and have sought his assistance. I also request that this motion be provided to the Knesset this 70th year, one parliament to another. Again, I formally pass this request along to the convener of the Israel Allies Caucus, Knesset member Robert Ilitov. I'll be in Israel in September this year during Sukkot as one of the chairs of the Israel Allies Caucus, a caucus made up of over 30 parliaments of the world. And I look forward to bringing our guilt offering, this motion and its speeches, personally to both the Knesset and Yad Vashem. And let me conclude this morning with the words of Psalm 122 by praying for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be with you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your prosperity. Amen.